birthday, Doug.
It has been a bad birthday. That looks like a turtle. And that looks like a man.
I see you back there.
It is a man! Hey, are you okay over there? I can smell you. Oh, it is a good birthday after all. I got my wish.
A new master.
Like a dog.
And that was the happiest day of my life.
Hey, I like dogs.
We have your dog.
No more fear of missing out. CVM TV News is on YouTube. Get up-to-date news, sports, and business content at CVM TV News anytime, anywhere. Subscribe now to CVM TV News to see it happen.
It's Monday, December 9, 2024. This is CVM News at noon. I'm Ramon Gordon. A deadly crash in Westmoreland has sparked new warnings from the National Road Safety Council as road fatalities continue despite a decline this year. Here's more. Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch PSTEB says fatal crashes are down by 17% this year compared to 2023. Deaths have also dropped by 13%. From January to December 9, 298 fatal crashes and 346 deaths were recorded. That's a big drop from 361 crashes and 398 deaths last year. But concerns remain as speeding and reckless driving continue to claim lives. In Westmoreland early this morning, a crash along the 3 miles main road killed 2 people and injured 3 others. Police say the driver of a motor car lost control while speeding around a curve and hit a tree. The driver and front seat passenger died on impact. The 3 other occupants were rushed to the hospital. Vice Chairman of the National Road Safety Council, Dr. Lucian Jones, is urging caution out west.
Everyone in Westmoreland should know by now that this is a place where crashes occur and fatal crashes occur. For the month of December, what is going to make a difference in the data is whether or not we have multiple fatalities, which tends to happen. And the only way we can prevent this is to slow down. Slow down in Westmoreland, slow down in St. Catherine, slow down in St. Anne, slow down in the whole Jamaica, and we'll reach home safe. Not only for Christmas and New Year, but next year.
And this morning on Sunrise, attorney Michael Kellier discussed local jury duty protocols, focusing on whether employers should compensate employees for days spent on jury duty or deduct pay from their regular 9-to-5 schedules.
So jury duty, as you have indicated, is a civic responsibility for all Jamaicans, and I encourage anyone who is summoned for jury duty to attend upon same. Just like how we pay our taxes, just like how we have passport and birth paper, a responsibility of being a citizen is serving on a jury.
Yes.
Now, that question is a regular question that comes, or concern that comes from our citizens about whether they will be penalized for jury duty. And the legislation or Jury Act says that is not the case. When you are summoned for jury duty, you should tell your employer promptly and share the summons with them, or even if you don't have the summons, but you go to court, get a letter from the relevant court's office to share with them, because many employers and employees get into this tussle about they're losing days.
Yes.
And that is not the case. They're not taking leave because it's a civic responsibility. Employers are entitled to pay their staff. They are entitled to give them the relevant time off.
Yes.
And most certainly, if an employee finds themselves in a challenging situation, they have the relevant recourse that they can take through the Industrial Dispute Tribunal or through the courts, where they can be compensated or reinstated in their work in the event that they are dismissed. The judge, in their discretion, has that opportunity to review or assess whatever condition or excuse a juror may bring in because they're having a challenge serving. Some of the excuses or some of the medical challenges aren't those that will affect them sitting and listening. And so the judge may say, I don't think this is one of the cases that you will have a challenge sitting on, but there are others where they're more dire. And of course, the judges will take it into consideration and excuse the person. If the person receives the summons and there's a proof that the person has been summoned, if your name is now called in court and you do not show up, you can be fined or given community service. Usually I think the fine is in the range of $10,000 or community service. If you don't serve the community service, there's also another penalty as well. Jurors do not get paid, even though it is your civic responsibility and it's a service you're giving back to your country. They are given a stipend. Recently, the Honourable Minister of Justice, the Honourable Delroy Chuck King's Counsel, in his parliamentary submissions about May of this year, made reference in his debate that they're actually increasing the stipend because we understand as well persons are taking time off of their schedules to come and complete this civic responsibility.
Speaking on CVM's lead story, economist Keenan Falconer linked Jamaica's low wages to low productivity and a mismatch between jobs available and global economic demands.
I mean, you think about the fact that our labor force, 60% just doesn't have any post-secondary qualifications at all, right? Only 15% has a degree. You know, that equates to around 200,000 out of 1.4 million. So even though unemployment is going down, you know, you do question what are the quality of the jobs being created, right? We have this paradox of growthless jobs, right? So it just means that each additional unit of labor is becoming less and less productive.
Meanwhile, trade unionist Helene Davis-Whyte believes that the salary structure in Jamaica fails to reflect the workers' contributions.
One of the important parts of it for me is the difference between Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean in terms of how the salaries are dispersed, meaning that you have far more persons in other countries of the Caribbean being paid at the top levels, while you have fewer persons in Jamaica. Well, the majority of them in Jamaica are at the lower levels. I think, if I remember correctly, only 8% were being paid above market in Jamaica. And when you look at the salary structure in Jamaica, and a lot of private sector firms, and also in the public sector, because I argue that the compensation restructure in the public sector actually resulted in us importing into the public sector some of the wide gaps in that exist in the private sector in terms of the difference between, say, your highest paid and your lowest paid. And I think that is part of the construct that we have to actually look at in Jamaica.
The 8th Tech Beach Retreat connecting Caribbean tech firms with global tech ecosystems ended at the weekend. Experts from around the world visited Jamaica to share insights on the industry. Trisha Gay Kelly was on location and spoke with the co-founders to explore the retreat's mission.
I think what we've done really is to bring together people that want to see the region make tremendous progress. I think a lot of times as young people we feel like progress is so incremental, and we see outside all sorts of really big jumps in progress happening, and we've created a space whereby people who want to do those kinds of things can come together so that we can increase the chances of creating some exponential outcomes coming from the region. And these are the kinds of opportunities that we're talking. Like, it's not normal, so I speak practically now, right? It's not normal that a guy from Jamaica living in Kingston or Mandeville or something connecting with somebody that's working at Google, and not like any sales office at Google, somebody that's working on core AI technology, for example, at Google, who could then be an advisor to their company, who can then be potential early stage investors to their company. These are the kinds of exponential type opportunities that we're creating right here in the Caribbean that is not normal for us.
Stay with us, our discussion segment is next.
comfort to every step with flooring that blends softness and style. From carpets and rugs to durable vinyl flooring and expert installation services, we have everything you need to transform your space. And when it's time for a refresh, our carpet and upholstery cleaning service brings your flooring back to life. Visit us at 18 Dunbarton Avenue, Kingston, the Carpet Store, because you deserve the best.
Get tiles and get creative with your floors, walls, and all the spaces in between. Our knowledgeable sales consultants are happy to help create your beautiful finish with the latest designs in first quality porcelain, wood look, vinyl, mosaics, natural stones, and countertops. At Creative, you will get every tile you need for your residential or commercial projects. Creative Building Finishes, your one-stop shop for everything tiles. Visit our showroom at 5 Red Hills Road or call 876-929-5553. Get tiles, get creative.
Recycling partners of Jamaica. Yeah, we got to make a change, and we have to do it now, can't wait for later. We put plastic in its place, and we all can agree that will be safer than in the gullies and in the drains. Recycling partners of Jamaica. We put plastic in its place, yeah, the place of it clean. PET, that up polyethylene, HDPE, buckle up against screen. Baby to granny, everybody roping. Yeah, we got to go green, you know what I mean. See the sign from the bin, if we drop it in through car window, you fling, that another thing. And we don't want no garbage in this game. No, we handle it up, but them are not the same. So listen up, Jamaica, I'm saying it's time to make a change. Recycling partners of Jamaica. We put plastic in its place, and we all can agree that will be safer than in the gullies in the heavy rains. Recycling partners of Jamaica. We put plastic in its place.
Welcome back. Jamaica has seen a reported decline in major crimes such as murder, rape, and robbery this year. Yet, nearly half the population still cites crime and violence as the country's biggest problem. With us in studio is Dr. Christopher Charles, Professor of Political and Social Psychology at the University of the West Indies, Mona, to discuss crime and so much more. Welcome so much, Doc.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Let's start with a conversation we started offset. It's a conversation about policing in Jamaica. You're familiar with the video? Some alleged robbers were captured in Christiana and they went live and they were suggesting that they were being mistreated by the police. What's your reaction to that incident initially, of course, in Spalding rather, and what does it say about policing more generally or policing culture in Jamaica? Let's start there.
Well, initially my thoughts were that they're a member of the social media generation, so it's easy for them to do these things and they're brazen. But if one goes beyond the surface and go deeper, one will realize that there is still a fear of summary execution by the police. And so going live was their attempt, or their way of protecting themselves, to say, here we are, even although they said they never had any firearms, we couldn't see anything, but they said they didn't have any weapons. They were at least broadcasting to the world that we're alive and we're here and so on. And they did that, I believe, to protect themselves from being killed when the police got to them.
What do you say to critics who will say that this sort of behavior from law enforcement is an affront to due process, or maybe perceived as an affront to due process? And we're not sympathizing with any alleged criminals here, but there is a process. What do you say to those who comment with those comments?
We should sympathize with the alleged criminals because it's alleged. Well, the extrajudicial killings, these kinds of killings have decreased since the establishment of the Independent Commission of Investigation. Right. But there's still that culture, there's still that fear. And I think this is what these young men were responding to when they went live.
Now, you heard in the little monologue we did to introduce the discussion segment that major crimes are down, murder, rape, etc. Do you think those statistics reflect the true reality on the ground? I think what I'm trying to ask is your perspective on the matter.
Well, in Jamaica, when I hear things from politicians and from the media, I take them with a grain of salt. So many decades ago, when I was in 10th grade in high school, or fourth form as we like to say, I was taught in the transition between GC and CXC that if you want to understand data, you have to look at the data over time. So it is foolish, and I dare anyone from any organization to come and tell me publicly otherwise, that if you tell me that the homicide rate this year is 20% less than last year, if that is numerically useful or meaningful. Of course, any life save is important, sure. But I'm just saying, to understand our problem, you have to look at that problem. That 20%, it could have dropped 30 in previous years. It could have it could have increased last year. I'm not going off actual numbers. I'm just thinking it through. Sure. It could have gone up much higher last year, and it dropped 20%. But we're nowhere near. We're still didn't make up for what happened last year. So the best thing to do is to look at the number over several years. At a minimum, 5 years, but people like me and some of my colleagues, we say 10 to 20. That's how you make meaningful sense of the crime data.
Of the data.
80-year differences are meaningless.
Well, of the data, what can we glean, either quantitatively or qualitatively, with the data available?
You mean that the 20% that you're talking for?
Just the decline in general.
I mean, violent crimes have been going down, except murder, over the last decade.
And they've attributed the murders to mostly gang violence, if I'm recalling.
That's the mode through which it is expressed.
Right.
And I'm saying it this way because the sources of violence, the gangs are actually instruments of the violence.
I see.
The sources come from dysfunctional families, families in crisis, brutalizing children, dysfunctional schools, violent communities.
It sounds like you're saying it's not enough to be going after just the government.
No, you should go after them. That's one part. But if you're not addressing the sources of criminality, the causes, all you're going to be doing is just going after the criminals, and you're not stemming the problem, because we're not working as a society to solve the problems that that create criminals.
Let's talk about that sort of intervention then, starting or addressing the root causes. What should be our nation's top priorities, you'd say?
All right, we know that if children get a good foundation from basic, primary, and preparatory schools, and they are solid, and they have support, it's highly likely that they'll become deviant in high school. And there are programs, Dream a World by the late Freddie Kling. We know Professor Henningham, Harry Toolbox. We also know Professor Sams Vaughan with Early Childhood Commission, and there are programs from Children First. These programs with research evidence, and some of them have won international awards, these programs have shown that if you set the right foundation from early with the children, they're going to go on to do well and be less deviant. So we know that countries like Jamaica, with a very high homicide rate, have a lot of boys out of school.
Right.
So if we come up with programs to ensure that the boys remain in school, because when they drop out, they join the gangs. The gang becomes their surrogate family.
I see.
So if we were to keep the boys and girls in school, within 5 years, we'll have a significant reduction.
No.
So I'm not saying it should be that only. You have to go after the current criminals who are creating mayhem. But while we do that, you need to go into the sources of criminality. What we have been doing since 1962 is just going after the criminals.
Doc, we could keep having this conversation for the rest of the day, probably for the rest of the month, but we have to wrap. You're watching CVM News at Noon. We'll be right back with more.
And we all have a story. I can vividly remember when I was about to sit my CSEC exams, my life took an abrupt turn. While I was walking home, I was struck by a motor vehicle. As a result, I suffered major memory loss, which unfortunately, I failed my exams. It was impossible to retain information. This one school piqued my interest the most, and it was the Distinction College, lowest school fee and flexible payment plan. They offer over 35 vocational and professional courses. Eventually, I became a part of the family, and during my time there, I resat my exams, and with the patience of my teachers, I was successful. In addition to that, I studied media and broadcasting, specializing in radio presentation. I co-hosted the school's radio show, Distinction 411. I voiced numerous ads for the school, interview artists, hosted graduation. And now, I have my own radio show called On the Air with Tashika Lu. So you see, my friends, if I can do it and I did, you can do it too. You can call them at 876-356-4167.
I only have hate. Make yourself